1776. All right, that's a look at your BRICS currencies at the moment. All right, so Ian Cruickshanks from the South African Institute of Race Relations joins me now to look at some of the market developments. Ian, thanks for coming in.
Good to be with you as always, thank you.
Let's start with Anglo American Platinum. They're saying they expect bigger than expected losses. And look at that, reporting impairments and write-offs amounting to $853 million. That's 14 billion rand.
That's it. I mean, that is colossal. But what is interesting is the turnaround in a year. Last year, they actually had positive revenue of about 800,000 rands. Now, yes, the decision to take these massive write-offs has made a big difference. But that just shows the parlous state of some of the biggest resource companies in the world.
Yep. And it pretty much tells us what the situation is at the moment. I mean, if you look at South Africa,
yes,
for example, let's take a look at it.
Yes, well, let's look at that then and say South Africa depends, our trade account, for instance, primarily on the export of base commodities in a non-improved manner. And really, if Anglo-American are finding so hard to produce these goods and make a profit, in fact making thundering losses, yeah, can South Africa have a positive trade balance? I don't think so. And this is a real battle that we're going to be up against. And this is going to reflect in ongoing pressure on the Rand exchange rate.
Yeah, another battle, just to stay with some company news here. I see furniture retailer Lewis releasing a trading statement. They're saying trading conditions for that period, 9 months to December, pretty harsh, very challenging, weak consumer demand. And it comes at a time when there are allegations against Lewis for reckless lending.
Yes, this is still unproven at this stage, yeah, but nevertheless, it does look as though there's a question mark against their business practices, against the furniture industry, the sales side as a whole. It's clearly a very difficult area. Consumers have got low confidence. They're not likely to be spending freely on high-cost furniture items. So I think it's a very difficult area, but they have at least got, on the trading point of view, taking the financial side out of it, yeah, a marginal improvement.
The other thing that's closely tied to this, and I see it's just the headlines when the news agencies are picking up on this, yes, the NCR, the National Credit Regulator, yes, also becoming unforgiving in terms of criteria, aren't they?
Yeah, well, quite rightly so too. Why should they get away with what we can only claim as somewhat doubtful business practices? It looks as though the consumer has been paying too much, sometimes for services which were neither offered verbally or in written form and not required by them. How can a pensioner be asked to have unemployment insurance? These sort of factors are not justifiable and need to be aired, and hopefully the credit regulator will bring this out.
Yep. Just looking at the international scene, Ian, I want to take a look at the oil price. One would have thought with the cold in the US and in the Northern Hemisphere, you might see some sort of sustained jump, but that's too little of a factor to see any move on the oil price, is it?
Well, not any, because let's face it, it was down to $27 at a low point, yeah, and now it's been up to $32, weaker again this morning, which I think is interesting, especially looking at those frightful scenes that we saw on your news channel just now. I think that the problem is there is more supply in the medium term, the next 1 to 2 years, than there is demand. The world industry, manufacturing, mining, wherever, are not growing at a robust rate, and therefore there's less energy required. Yes, there will be temporarily a little more energy required in the eastern states of the US, but that's not ongoing. Seasons change, but manufacturing does not support the demand that needs to be seen to justify a turnaround in that oil price. Look, it's been down below 30 a couple of times now. Maybe we're forming a base. I think if one looks at it from a technical point of view, plus or minus $20 to $30 may be expected as some sort of base level.
Your quick remark on the Rand, I see trading near 1.5 week high against the dollar. Yeah. Riding on some uptick of the global sentiment, but just tie in what's happening with the Rand to the upcoming MPC meeting this week.
Well, perhaps investors are saying perhaps we're going to see an increase in interest rates. Yep. This would be not a fairly reasonable expectation, I think. After all, inflation is likely to go outside the target band. The fact that the economy is struggling, really struggling, isn't as important as the Reserve Bank's primary function, to control inflation. And I think that the only tool that they have is interest rates. They'll have to use that. And maybe investors are saying, well, let's buy a little bit of South African securities because we may get a slightly better return. We're likely to get a slightly better return.
Ian Cruickshanks from the Institute of Race Relations, as always, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
We'll take a look at more business news after the break. Do stay with us.